So, folks, I'd like to introduce you to my much esteemed and beloved colleague, Fakhir Shah. He runs our operation in Pakistan, the Schuitema operation in Pakistan. And he recently wrote an article on our website on the relationship between gratitude and having a growth mindset. And I found that a really informative sort of piece of work. So I thought, well, it'd be helpful if he would just explain to us what he meant. So welcome, Father Sal. Nice to see you. And yes, well, how do you understand the relationship between gratitude and a growth mindset?
Thank you, sir. And it's a pleasure to be in this podcast. Sheikh Sab, the thing of mindset was, in the background of the work that I was doing recently. One of my clients, they asked me to put in a proposal for growth mindset. And I had two questions, which I was investigating while I was writing the proposal. That what is our take? Well, our take means Schuitema's take. What does our thematic say about growth mindset? And in the background, there were some philosophical things like principal perspective or mental models and things like that, going on in my mind. So I just wanted to wrap my head around all these concepts and, kind of a unifying thing, something which you can say kind of a master key which will unlock this thing. And all of a sudden, I realized this thing that it's not only about learning or, resilience, this mindset, growth mindset. If we want to understand a little bit about growth mindset, I will just say, think about the word fixed mindset.
Quicks.
So fixed
Fixed
mindset is
a big part.
it is the opposite of growth mindset. This is not possible. I can't do it. Things like that. Things, all those things which are limiting, which are telling you that this is not possible. Growth mindset is, well, this is possible. I can do it. I have the resources to do it, and I will try my best. I can fail, but this is not a loss. I will learn something. This is, kind of a growth mindset. But my question was, where is this thing coming from, basically? Deeper down inside me, if I have a growth mindset, where is this thing coming from? So it immediately became apparent to me that, this is coming from a kind of a belief that I have enough, I have been given enough. And there is an abundance inside me and abundance also outside me. And the name was obviously, it's the gratitude, Basically, I have to believe in this thing that the world works. I don't have to fix the world. I have to make my contribution, and that will open the way for me. So this was, for me, it was very simple, actually. Nothing very complex.
So what you're suggesting then is that a growth mindset has to be based on some sort of a conviction that things work. Otherwise, you're dealing with an issue that you're dealing with a set of circumstances by definition will just be too overwhelming.
That's true, Shekhar. Things have to be grounded in something.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it will be just a kind of, I will get a high and then it will wane. So I have to, ground this thing in my belief that, and, I have to find my own evidence of this thing in my life. That things do work. There are failures, but that I have to take them with stride, what I've learned. And, in the hindsight, we all know that things that we were wanting at the time and we were not given, we were denied. It turns out that, the decision was right,
Yeah.
Only that I didn't know at the time because my emotions were so much kind of, involved.
Yeah.
And I had a bias towards a certain outcome, which I really wanted. But over a period of time, well, maybe the best thing that can happen to you is that you are, for my case, my own example, that I frustrated so much with my job that I resigned and said I will do something new.
Mm, mm, mm. So, I mean, you wrote that article in response to an approach by a client. So clearly you have a view on how to sort of cultivate this growth mindset in an organization. How would you propose to do that?
Except first we have to understand what is mindset
Mm,
and how does it affect. And we have to actually tease out, examples from people and develop a kind of, that you can ask people, for example, that what does the word growth mean to you? You can ask people simple question that we ask in our workshops that why do you come to work?
mm,
We can ask people questions like what is your worldview?
mm,
And then link that thing that whether this thing is helping you grow or this thing is actually, stopping you.
okay.
So, it is a kind of an interactive session with questions being asked and dialogue pursuing and, bringing things, or leading people to their own conclusions.
Mm, mm. Okay, so it's
And then, asking them, where are you at in your life also
mm,
right now? What are your struggles? And
mm,
linking that thing to your mindset.
mm,
And then, asking them, well, going forward, how will you rephrase this thing?
right.
So that it's not a fixed mindset thing. It's not a limiting thing. It's a kind of a liberating thing for you. How would you phrase it?
Mm,
I haven't done this piece of work, but I'm really excited, that if
mm,
I get the opportunity to do this thing.
mm.
And Alhamdulillah, I'm very confident that the entire content that and process that I'm using is our own process.
Yeah, 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 yeah. So I mean, in pursuit of this matter, um, if you were to encourage or get a leader to cultivate a growth mindset with the people that the leader leads, what are sort of some of the intervention points? What could one do for and with that leader?
Except I have found it very useful to ask people what are their fears and
Mm,
what are their vulnerabilities.
mm,
And from that, it becomes really apparent. Am I happy to be here? How do I see my organization as a platform which allows me opportunities, which I can't do things, as an individual alone,
mm,
but my organization gives me an opportunity to do those things by giving me means, ability, and of course, holding me accountable also.
mm, mm,
Uh, am I happy to be part of you as a team, for example?
mm.
So, once when you start examining all these kind of things, one of the things that I use is that I say to people, okay, make a self and other diagram with you in the center and, the rest people with
Mm.
whom you are having a lot of interactions, work-related interaction. And now see where do you stand on the continuum of resentment and gratitude.
Okay. With regard to each
And
person.
yeah, for each person. And ask yourself if there is a resentment, where is this resentment coming? And this resentment might be in the relationship against myself also. It's not
Mm,
always against the other person.
mm, mm.
And if this resentment is against the other person, then it's most likely my lack of courage to confront the other person. So I ask people, do you need to confront this person?
Mm.
Or if in any relationship I have resentment against myself, most likely this is lack of generosity on my part. I'm not giving that person their due.
Mm.
So, I have found that when people actually kind of reflect. You can see their faces,
Mm.
And I use this opportunity to do this thing not only for their professional, relationships at work, but also in their personal life.
So is this based on a one-on-one coaching interaction with the client? Or do you also do this in a group setting?
I have done this thing in a group setting. I have done this thing in one-to-one coaching also. And you can make people in small groups and they can discuss then things. My intention is to give them an opportunity to be more reflective and feel this thing that, whatever is happening to them, as you have said many years ago, I still remember that you manufacture how it feels to be in your skin. So now the question is that how am I manufacturing that thing? It's not, it's not giving everything its due.
Yeah.
Which leads to the baggage. And then, things do complicate over a period of time because the baggage is being accumulated.
Yeah. No, that's right. And sometimes it becomes kind of almost unfixable because it's so heavy and there's so many issues.
Yeah, but Sheikh Sir, what I found is that to understand that what is the one step that I need to take now that will change. This is important.
Okay.
And it's not that I will be right first time, but at least I can try.
Okay. So if I'm going to reverse a little bit and just string a few data points together of what I've understood. So if you're trying to cultivate a growth mindset in people, then you can do this both as an individual coaching interaction with an individual client, an individual leader. You can also do this in groups. And one of the things the group needs to sort of explore is where they stand in terms of a continuum of resentment and gratitude with every one of the key people that they basically interact with on a day-to-day basis. I mean, the key people of their world. And particularly when you're dealing with an individual, the sort of, you're saying that, what is the next step forward? What is the key thing that you need to do? I'm assuming that's what you're saying, to take the next step forward in terms of remediating to move from resentment to gratitude in any given context, because that will cultivate the openness for you to be open to a growth mindset.
Except, let me, kind of rephrase myself, and I'm deliberately choosing our own terminology.
Right.
I think this shift from a fixed mindset to a growth mindset is actually at the root of it is that I am shifting from the intent to get to intent to give.
That makes sense. Yeah.
And primarily, the first thing is to shift the resentment to gratitude.
That's right.
Now, outwardly, if you see this thing, our transactional correctness model is extremely helpful. This might be an act of generosity, or this might be an act of courage that will change, the kind of the chemistry of the relationship.
Yeah.
So I see the other, now more and more in terms of what is my relationship with the other, whether it is the social other or even, whatever, that the other can be an idea that I'm struggling with. So how do I see it? What does it require from me? An act of courage or act of generosity, or maybe a shift inward, gratitude, that I count the blessings in the relationship, and there's an internal shift which will manifest itself in the form of generosity.
Yeah.
Or if there's a lack of trust in the relationship, what is it I need to do? One of the questions that came to me, and this is also related with this growth mindset thing. My brother was saying to me, look, you have a fantastic model, but how does this model work in a low trust environment? Because Pakistan is a very low trust environment. Now it gives me, I'm actually working on this thing and I'm trying to, get a flow in my ideas about this thing. But I have no doubt about this thing that, the answer is in an act of courage and act of generosity, whichever is appropriate in the situation.
As you say that, it occurs to me, I've had I won't go into details about the relationship, sort of, I don't want to make it public. But I've had a person close to me that I gave a lot to historically. And they've just recently sort of came out of the woodwork with a deep sense of distrust. Accusing me of having done them in. And indicating that, with no justifiable kind of reasons at all. And what was apparent to me is that for that person to maintain that view, they had to be overlooking whatever I've done prior to this. Had I not done enough? If one's looking at a low trust environment, now I've just got myself in a knot here because I've just realized that if you look at this as a system, so this person, I think I've given in excess of this person's due to this person. Right. This person does not believe that's the case, and they believe that I've tried to do them in. Right. So one could go to this person and say, listen, I recognize what's been given. But the problem is that their response has now put me in a position where I realize that I can't trust my interests to this person. Because this person's out to get me. Because they can't see whatever I've done historically, and they can't see that this has happened. So the question then, so I'd like to ask you that as a conundrum. That's a problem for me personally. How then do I manage my own state when I recognize that the person has not doesn't see what the contributions that have been made and doesn't trust me as a result, and therefore is likely to do me in? I can't trust them.
Sheikh Sir, broadly, if we see this thing, this is a challenge of courage. Because there is a visible resentment in you that you have done enough and this person is not recognizing this thing, which is a common thing, especially in close relationships. We generally don't actually acknowledge or, we don't address this thing. So basically, I would explore this thing from that angle, And from Schuitema, means ability and accountability model point of view, this is an accountability issue.
Yeah.
I remember, I was having this conversation with Shah many years ago. By the way, this February, it has been 5 years now since she has left us.
Really? That's sure.
Yeah. So I said to her, we were discussing about my relationship with a person, a professional relationship, and I said to her that, I helped this person, but I feel resentment. And she said to me, look, it seems to me that you are being generous where you ought to be courageous.
Right.
Now, and Sheikh Saab, I have actually thought about this thing many times, and there's no, fixed answer to this thing. In certain relationships, we just can't be courageous. Then the courage is that we let go of that thing. I say that, okay, this person is like this. I accept this person as it is, but, and I deliberately choose that, no matter what this person does, I will be generous with this person. Then at least, you will say, okay, this is my choice and I accept that thing as it is. So there will be no resentment. The calibration is to see whether this thing is generating a resentment against self or other. If you can address that resentment, there can be many ways of addressing that thing.
Yeah, that makes sense. No, that is actually very, very helpful, Fakhir. Thank you. You said, see, the key thing is we had a conversation like this recently here in the Zawiya about this. And the question somebody had is, can you retrospectively change a transaction where you were taken from to one where you gave? So let's say, for instance, somebody comes to visit me, and when they leave, I recognize that they've made off with my wallet. I've been taken from. If I discover that the reason why the person made off with my wallet is that his wife's desperately sick and he needs the money that's in the wallet to save her life, I could at that point say, I let it go. I let it go. And if I let it go, I've now changed what's happened to me from me being taken from to me giving. And I've actually done that retrospectively.
So I think you are spot on. That's it.
You
can actually, you once said that you can always reclaim your childhood.
Yeah.
So, and I think, even with our relationship with our Lord, once we actually truly repent and ask or seek for forgiveness, then the mystery of the deed changes,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So, and
gold rather than lead.
Yeah. And this thing we do experience in our dealing with the, social other also.
Isn't it interesting that the word forgive, I mean, forgive, that's, there has to be more than just an accident of articulation that's put the word give in that word. Yeah. That's very helpful. That's very helpful. I mean that's so because I got here in response to your view of how does one deal with very charged high distrust environments like the Pakistani world that you're describing, and I think there has to be an element of people recognizing that they still have the autonomy to let go of their resentments. And then, in fact, nothing's going to change in terms of the trustworthiness of the world around them unless they do that.
That's true, sir. That's true. Because actually, it's not the issue of other being trustworthy. It's the issue of me being trustworthy and unconditional in that. Here the concept of unconditionality so beautifully, comes because, I personally feel that humans, our challenge is our motive, and to be more specific, unconditionality of our, you do something, the example that you are giving, you are doing this thing with a good intent, but what you are getting in return is, kind of now checking your unconditionality. And the more we do understand this thing, that this is our real challenge, the more this growth mindset is, it came in a context, But when I started, trying to understand this thing, growth mindset was a kind of a limiting, phrase. I think the issue at the deeper level is it's all about my life, how I see my life. What is my worldview actually? Because, the fundamental questions that we all struggle with is, who am I? What is this world all about, this universe, this vastness? What is my relationship with this? And what should be my conduct now? These are the fundamental questions, So if you get these answers right, you are actually aligned with, the greater forces, which will propel you towards growth. And there will be an internal manifestation of that growth, and there will be, of course, an external manifestation of it. I don't see that these two things are separated. Because I still remember one of the conversations that we had a long time ago, that, that inward and outward are, they are connected, So if you kill one, you kill both. So I don't, see any outward growth without real inward growth. That is kind of just a, temporary thing.
And it also suggests that one can kind of allow the issue of courage and generosity to kind of come out in the wash. I mean, if you've done the appropriate inner work, then the next step forward will be absolutely apparent to you. It won't be, it'll be clear. I mean, there'll be, so it's almost, that's not the difficult piece. Acting right is not the difficult piece. Seeing right is the difficult piece.
That's true. That's true. Yeah. Sheikh, so one of the ways, just because we are having this thing, I do ask people this thing that, when they start challenging this giving, I say to them, intuitively tell me this thing. Will you progress with greed and fear, or with generosity and courage? Tell me this thing. If I want to develop, I want to go forward, I have two options. Either I'm driven by greed and fear, or I'm driven by generosity and courage. Tell me, what is your take? And, I have never ever seen a single person saying to me, greed and fear.
Really, eh? So it's apparent.
But the question is, and the real challenge is that, there's one thing to know and there's another thing to be. So our challenge as real challenge is, transformation consultants, whether it's 1:1 or whether it's 1-to-many, is actually to facilitate this thing, that it's easy for people to know things and they don't challenge you. But there's another thing to be. And what does that mean in their context to be?
Could you say a bit more? How do you understand?
What I've found is that, even at personal level, you are much more experienced than me in dealing with people on 1:1 basis. How many times we find people who will deny virtue?
That's right.
Now, the question is that I will say, be honest. But this is at the level of knowledge. This is not at the level of being when I practice.
Mm.
So what's the issue? Because my fear and greed overcomes me.
Mm. And I
So
understand.
what's the transformation that is required
Yeah.
to be?
Mm.
And I think it all starts with a level of awareness.
Mm.
And that awareness then goes at the level of presence.
Mm.
And this is what, the zikr is all about, creating that presence,
Mm.
So even, I was just struggling with this idea of presence of values
Mm.
because we don't have presence of values. We do write them on the walls and, we claim also. But the question is that by presence, I mean this thing that while I am doing an action, do I have the presence of that thing alive in that moment? Because if it is there, then it will stop me. And even shakes up, let's go to hardcore organization. How many times people have ideas and they fail to implement them? Because the idea is not at the level of presence. When you start eating, drinking, and sleeping an idea, then most likely you will, start implementing it.
Yeah.
So the question is, what will it take to create presence of any idea? And that could be at 1:1 level, at that level of individual, n=1. And that could be n=to many, organization, nation, for example.
Fakhir, this has been a fascinating conversation. Thank you very much.
Oh, sorry, my pleasure.
And I hope maybe we can do this more frequently. Just pick up a theme and run with it for a bit and see where we end up.
Alhamdulillah, Sheikh Sahab, thanks to you, I have over a period of time learned this thing that things are connected, And it is the connection of things that actually ground you more. Because, if I see things that they are scattered and they are diverse and, there's no link, they become meaningless actually for me.
Yeah, I must admit that's been my experience also as I get older. I mean, it's like basically these core patterns and the things that we've been speaking about for all of these decades, they become so apparent to me now. I mean, it might also be sort of the glasses I'm wearing, I suppose, one could say that. But you're absolutely right. I mean, there's things are increasingly, I'm just seeing how all of these things weave together. And that actually we're every human being is struggling with the same problem, Do I have to manage my life or does my life work? Fundamentally.
True.
Thank you very much, Fakhir.
Sir, welcome. Always a pleasure.
All the best.
Okay. Likewise, sir.
Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum.
Assalam.